There's a moment in every life when you realize you've been asleep. Not the kind of sleep that comes with closed eyes and dreams, but the deeper kind. The one where you go through the motions, smile when expected, and slowly disappear into the background of your own existence. For me, that awakening came at 72 in a house that had been mine for 40 years, standing in the hallway with my hand pressed against the wall, listening to my son and his wife plan how to take it all away. I'd always believed that being a good mother meant sacrifice, that love was measured in what you gave up, not what you kept for yourself. After my husband Manuel died 8 years ago, I thought opening my home to Rafael and his wife Beatrice was the right thing to do. They were struggling, he said. Just for a little while, he promised. I was alone in this big house anyway, with too many empty rooms and too much silence. What harm could it do? But a little while became a year, then 2, then 5. And somewhere in that time, I stopped being Helena, the woman who once ran a small textile shop in the old town, who loved fado music and evening walks along the Gilão River, who had dreams of traveling to Madeira. I became something else. A convenient solution, a bank account with a heartbeat. The woman who paid for everything while they saved for their future. My future, it seemed, had already been decided without my consent. I remember the exact moment it changed. It was a Tuesday evening in late September when the light in Tavira turns golden and soft and the castle ruins cast long shadows across the rooftops. I'd come upstairs to bring them fresh towels, still playing the role of the helpful mother, when I heard Beatrice's voice through their bedroom door. Sharp, businesslike, nothing like the sweet tone she used with me. "We need to move faster. She's old, Rafael. Anything could happen. If we don't get the house transferred now, we'll lose everything we've invested here." Invested. As if the 8 years of free rent, the paid utilities, the groceries I bought, the repairs I funded, as if none of that was their investment, but mine. As if I was the one who owed them something. I stood there in the dim hallway, holding those towels, feeling something crack open inside my chest. Not heartbreak. I'd felt that when Manuel died. This was different. This was clarity. Cold, sharp, undeniable clarity. And for the first time in years, I didn't look away from it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, the same bed I'd shared with Manuel, where we'd whispered plans for retirement, where he'd held my hand during his final days, and I stared at the ceiling, watching the moonlight move across the plaster. A single question kept circling through my mind, relentless as the tide. How did I become invisible in my own life? The morning after I heard them, I woke with a strange sensation in my body. Not quite fear, not quite anger, but something harder. Something that felt like stone settling in my stomach. I made coffee the way I always did, ground the beans by hand, the old grinder Manuel bought in Lisbon decades ago. The kitchen smelled like it always smelled. The tiles were the same blue and white azulejos we'd chosen together. But I felt different in the space, like I was a guest visiting my own history. Rafael came down first, still in his pajamas, hair messy, looking exactly like the boy who used to climb into our bed during thunderstorms. 43 years old now, but in this light, I could see him at 7, at 12, at 17. Mothers carry every version of their children inside them. That's the trap, isn't it? You keep loving the child, even when the adult standing before you has learned to see you as a resource rather than a person. "Morning, Mai," he mumbled, reaching for the coffee I'd already poured for him. Black, 2 sugars. I knew it without thinking. 20 years of muscle memory. He scrolled through his phone while he drank, barely registering my presence. I watched him over the rim of my own cup, really looked at him, and wondered when he'd stop seeing me, or if he ever truly had. Beatriz appeared next, perfectly put together despite the early hour. Hair smoothed back, makeup subtle but deliberate. Wearing the expensive blouse I recognized because I'd paid for it 3 Christmases ago. "Bon dia, Elena," she said, using my first name like we were friends, equals, when in truth she'd never treated me as either. She kissed the air near my cheek, a performance of affection with no substance behind it. They talked to each other over breakfast, discussing their plans for the day, mentioning people I didn't know, places I'd never been invited to. I might as well have been furniture, and maybe that's what I'd become. The useful table that holds things, the reliable chair that supports weight without complaint. Functional, expected, invisible. Later, after they'd left for work, Rafael to the municipal office where he processed paperwork, Beatriz to the pharmacy where she was assistant manager, I walked through my house like a stranger. Really walked through it. Every room held memories I'd been trying to honor by keeping everything the same. Manuel's reading chair by the window, the wedding photos in the silver frames, the ceramic plates from our honeymoon in Coimbra still hanging on the dining room wall. I'd been living in a museum dedicated to a life that had ended, guarding it carefully, while 2 people who cared nothing for its history slowly dismantled it from within. In the study, I found the bills piled on Manuel's old desk. I sat in his chair. I rarely did, it still felt like his space, and started going through them carefully. Electric, water, property tax, insurance, internet, groceries. I paid for everything. Everything. I totaled up 6 months of expenses and stared at the number, feeling something cold spread through my chest. They contributed nothing. Not 50 euros. Not 20. Nothing. And I'd never asked them to. I'd made it easy for them to take. That's when I noticed the papers tucked in the back of one drawer. Documents about property transfer. Power of attorney forms. They'd been researching this for months. Maybe years. My hands shook as I read through them, recognizing Beatriz's handwriting in the margins, little notes to herself about procedures and requirements. They'd been planning this carefully, waiting for the right moment to convince me it was for my own good. I put the papers back exactly as I'd found them, closed the drawer quietly, stood up slowly, and, for the first time since Manuel died, I felt something other than grief or loneliness. I felt fury. Clean, bright, clarifying fury. But I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just stood there in the silence of my husband's study, in the house we'd built together, and I made a decision. But how do you fight back when the weapons being used against you are your own love and trust?
I didn't tell anyone what I'd discovered, not at first. I was still testing the weight of it, this new knowledge, seeing how it changed the shape of everything I thought I understood. I went through my routines like always, made meals, cleaned rooms, smiled when expected. But underneath, something was shifting. Ice breaking up on a frozen river, small cracks spreading. On Thursday morning, I walked into town. Tavira was beautiful in October, the tourists mostly gone, the streets returned to those of us who lived here year-round. I loved this town, loved the Roman bridge, the castle ruins, the churches with their blue-tiled facades, the way the light hit the water at sunset. Manuel and I used to walk to the market together every Saturday, buying fish straight from the boats, arguing playfully about which vegetables looked freshest. After he died, those walks became lonely. Then they became impossible because someone had to stay home and cook for Rafael and Beatriz. I stopped at a cafe near Praça da República and ordered a coffee, sitting outside even though the morning air had a chill to it. I needed to think, needed to feel the sun on my face and remember what it was like to exist outside the walls of that house. An older woman at the next table smiled at me, and we exchanged pleasantries about the weather, about nothing important. But it felt significant somehow, this tiny interaction with a stranger who saw me, even briefly. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my old friend Teresa. We'd worked together at the textile shop back when I still had a life outside my roles as wife and mother. She'd stayed in business, turned it into something bigger, more modern. We drifted apart after Manuel died. My fault, really. I'd retreated into my grief and my duty to family, let everything else fall away. "Helena?" She sounded surprised when she answered. "Mel Dales, I was just thinking about you last week. How are you?" How was I? Such a simple question with such a complicated answer. "I need to talk to someone," I said quietly. "Can we meet?" We arranged to have lunch the next day at a small restaurant near the river. I felt nervous about it, like I was doing something forbidden, even though it was just lunch with an old friend. That's how small my world had become. That's how completely I disappeared into servitude. That evening, I cooked bacalhau à brás, the way Rafael liked it, with extra onions, crispy potatoes, set the table carefully, served them like I'd served countless dinners before, but this time I was watching them differently, studying them. Rafael ate quickly, distracted, mentioned he'd be late tomorrow because of a work thing. Beatriz picked at her food, scrolled through her phone, made comments about needing new winter clothes. "The heating needs to be fixed before it gets colder. It's barely working upstairs. You should call someone soon, Helena." You should call someone. Not we, not let us help, just another item on my list of responsibilities, in my own house. I nodded, said nothing, cleared the plates while they moved to the living room to watch television. Their television, actually, the one I'd bought last year after Beatrice complained the old one was too small. I stood at the sink washing dishes by hand, even though we had a dishwasher, because the rhythm of it soothed me. Warm water, soap, circular motions, meditation through menial tasks. In the reflection of the dark window above the sink, I could see myself. 72 years old. Hair more gray than brown now, pulled back in a simple bun, lines around my eyes, around my mouth. Hands that had worked hard their whole life, raised a child, buried a husband, held on to a home. When had I stopped seeing this woman as someone worthy of respect? When had I decided her needs didn't matter? I stopped my hands slowly, hung the towel on its hook with deliberate care, and walked upstairs to my room, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed, and finally, after years of holding it in, I let myself feel the full weight of what my life had become. Not with tears, I was past tears, but with a cold, hard certainty that something had to change. What does it mean to love someone who only sees you as a means to an end?
Friday afternoon, I met Teresa at the restaurant. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table near the window overlooking the river, and when she saw me, her face lit up with genuine warmth. I had forgotten what that felt like, being seen, being welcomed. We hugged, and I almost started crying right there. She smelled like lavender and fabric softener, familiar, comforting. "You look tired," she said gently, holding my hands and studying my face, not as a criticism, but as a fact spoken with concern. I am tired, I admitted, and just saying it out loud felt revolutionary. I was so used to pretending everything was fine. Teresa, I think I've made terrible mistakes. Over lunch, fresh fish grilled with olive oil and lemon, simple and perfect, I told her everything. The overheard conversation, the documents in the drawer. 8 years of supporting 2 adults who contributed nothing, who saw me as an obstacle to overcome rather than a person to cherish. I kept my voice low, calm, but my hands trembled slightly when I lifted my water glass. Teresa listened without interrupting, her expression growing harder as I spoke. Finally, when I finished, she put down her fork and leaned forward. Helena, listen to me carefully. You need to talk to a lawyer. Today, now. This isn't just about hurt feelings. This is about protecting yourself legally before they can do real damage. But he's my son, I said weakly, hearing how pathetic it sounded even as I said it. And you're his mother, Teresa said firmly, which means he should be protecting you, not plotting against you. Love doesn't mean letting people destroy you. It never has. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through contacts. My nephew Tomas is a lawyer here in Tavira. Good one. Handles estate planning, property law. Let me call him. I wanted to say no. Wanted to shrink back into the familiar discomfort of my situation rather than face the unknown discomfort of fighting back. But I thought about those documents, about Beatrice's voice saying anything could happen, about 40 years of my life reduced to a property transfer form. Yes, I heard myself say. Call him. Tomas could see me that afternoon. His office was in a restored building near the castle, all white walls and dark wood, professional but not intimidating. He was maybe 40, kind eyes, patient demeanor. He listened to my story with the same focused attention Teresa had given me, taking notes, occasionally nodding. Helena, he said when I finished, what they're planning, attempting to transfer property without clear consent, is legally questionable at best, but more importantly, you have rights. This is your house, your assets. You can protect them, but we need to act now, before they try something formal. He explained options, changing locks, updating my will, making sure my documents were secure, creating legal barriers that would require my explicit witness consent for any transfers. It sounded complicated and frightening, but also empowering, like I was taking up space again, reclaiming territory. I'll have to think about it, I said, though I already knew what I'd decide. Some part of me was still holding on to the fantasy that Raphael would come to his senses, that the boy who used to make me Mother's Day cards would remember he'd once loved me as more than a bank account. Don't think too long, Tomas said gently. People who are planning what you've described usually move quickly once they've made their decision. I walked home slowly through the old town, past the Igreja da Misericordia with its ornate doorway, past the market square where I used to shop with Manuel. The afternoon light was golden, that particular Portuguese light that makes everything look like a painting, beautiful and melancholy at once. When I got home, the house was empty. They were still at work. I stood in the entryway looking at the space with new eyes. This was mine. Manuel left it to me. I'd maintained it, cherished it, filled it with memories and love, and I would not let it be stolen. Not by guilt, not by manipulation, not by the twisted logic that mothers owe their children everything, including their own erasure. How do you grieve the child you raised while protecting yourself from the adult they became?
The weekend passed in strange suspension. I smiled when I was supposed to smile, cooked when I was supposed to cook, existed in the background of their lives like always. But inside, I was planning, thinking, calculating. Monday morning, after they left for work, I called Tomas back. I want to do it, I said. All of it. Whatever I need to do to protect myself. We spent that week putting things in motion, quietly. I gathered documents, the house deed, Manuel's will, bank statements, everything. Thomas helped me review my finances, and what I discovered made me feel sick. I wasn't wealthy, but I wasn't poor either. Manuel's pension, my small savings, the value of the house, I had resources. Resources that Rafael and Beatriz had been slowly draining while contributing nothing. The hardest part was changing the locks. It felt so final, so confrontational. But Thomas was firm. You need to establish clear boundaries. This is about safety, Helena, legal and emotional safety. I hired a locksmith for the following Monday when I knew they'd both be at work. A nice man named Juan who didn't ask questions, just changed every lock in the house efficiently. When he was done, I held the new keys in my palm, feeling their weight. Such small objects. But they represented something enormous. My right to decide who entered my space. That evening, I cooked dinner like normal, set the table like normal, waited for them to come home. My heart was beating hard, but my hands were steady. This was it. The moment when everything would change, when I would speak instead of staying silent, when I would choose myself over the comfortable lie that sacrificing everything was love. Rafael arrived first, whistling as he came through the door, using his key, not knowing it no longer worked. When the door didn't open, he tried again, confused, then annoyed, then angry. He knocked hard. "Mine! The key isn't working. Can you open the door?" I walked slowly to the door, took a breath, opened it. He looked at me with irritation, not concern. "What's wrong with the lock? My key doesn't work." "I changed them," I said calmly. "You what? Why would you do that?" "Because it's my house." The confusion on his face was almost comical, like he couldn't comprehend what I was saying. "Mine? That makes no sense. I live here. Why wouldn't my key work?" Beatriz appeared behind him, walking up the path from where she'd parked her car. "What's going on?" "She changed the locks," Rafael said, his voice rising, "without telling us." Beatriz's expression shifted immediately from confusion to calculation. She was faster than Rafael at understanding what this meant. "Helena, is everything all right?" she said carefully, using that sweet, patronizing tone I'd learned to hate. It seems like a very strange thing to do. Trying to make me seem confused, senile, incapable, I saw the strategy immediately. "I feel clearer than I have in years," I said. "We need to talk, all of us. Please come in." I stepped aside, let them enter, but I kept those new keys in my pocket. Mine, my house, my choice. We sat in the living room, them on the sofa, me in Manuel's chair, claiming it deliberately. I'd prepared what I wanted to say, practiced it, but now that the moment was here, the words felt heavier than I expected. "I know what you've been planning," I said quietly. "I found the documents. I heard you talking about transferring the house." Rafael's face went white. Beatriz's face went hard. Neither of them denied it. That somehow hurt more than anything. The immediate confirmation, the lack of even attempting to lie. "Mine, it's not what you think." "Yes, it is," I interrupted, my voice stronger than I expected. "It's exactly what I think. You've been living in my home for 8 years, contributing nothing, planning to take everything. I won't let it happen." The conversation that followed was ugly, shouting, accusations. Rafael called me ungrateful, said they'd sacrificed to take care of me. Beatriz was colder, more calculating, threatened legal action. I sat there taking it, absorbing their anger, their sense of entitlement, their absolute conviction that I owed them my entire existence. And when they finally stopped, exhausted by their own fury, I spoke one last time. "You have until the end of the month to find somewhere else to live." The silence after I said it was complete. How do you survive the moment when you choose your own peace over your child's comfort? If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss the next chapter of life, love, and redemption.
They didn't believe me at first. I think they thought I'd apologized by morning, back down like I always had before. But I didn't. I held firm, and as the days passed, the atmosphere in the house became poisonous. They stopped speaking to me, except to argue. Beatrice left passive-aggressive notes about bills, about responsibilities. Rafael oscillated between pleading and rage, sometimes in the same conversation. "How can you do this to your own son?" he shouted one night after dinner. "After everything we've done for you?" "What have you done for me, Rafael?" I asked calmly. "Tell me one thing. One single thing you've contributed in 8 years." He couldn't answer, or wouldn't. Instead, he turned it around, made it about his suffering, his sacrifices, how hard it was to watch me struggle after his father died, how they'd put their own lives on hold to keep me company. Every sentence a revision of history so complete I wondered if he actually believed it. I stopped cooking for them, stopped cleaning their spaces, took care only of myself and my own rooms. It felt strange, selfish, wrong, until it started feeling right. I ate small meals at the kitchen table with a book propped open. I walked into town every afternoon, rediscovering places I'd forgotten. I had coffee with Teresa twice that week, and she introduced me to other women, her friends, my age, widows and divorcees who'd built full lives after loss. One afternoon, I met a woman named Sophia, who'd left her husband at 68 after 40 years of marriage. "Everyone thought I was crazy," she told me over tea. But I wasn't crazy. I was suffocating. Leaving didn't kill me. It saved me. Because that's what I was doing, wasn't it? Leaving. Not physically yet, but emotionally, spiritually. I was leaving the role I'd been assigned, stepping away from the script I'd followed for so long, and it felt like dying and being born at the same time. Tomas called midweek with news. "I've prepared all the documents. Your will is updated. The house is protected. If you want to move forward with formally evicting them, we can begin that process. But Helena," he paused, "are you sure? Once you do this, it will be very difficult to repair the relationship." "The relationship is already broken," I said, and hearing myself say it felt like cracking open a door I'd kept locked for years. I'm just finally admitting it. That Friday evening, I drafted a letter. Not a legal document, Tomas had those covered, but a personal one. I needed them to understand, even if they wouldn't listen, even if they'd never acknowledged their part in any of this. I wrote it carefully, choosing each word with precision. I told them about the 8 years, about paying for everything while they saved their money for a future that apparently didn't include me, about the loneliness of being invisible in my own home, about overhearing their plans and feeling my heart break in a way that was different from grief. This was betrayal. I told them I loved Rafael, would always love him, but that love couldn't mean letting myself be erased, that I deserved dignity, that I deserved peace, that I deserved to live the remaining years of my life on my own terms. I ended with a request, that they leave willingly by the end of the month, that we part without more ugliness, that we try to preserve whatever fragments of respect might still exist between us. I printed 2 copies, put them in envelopes, left them on their bedroom door. Then I went to my room, locked the door, and cried. Not from regret. I didn't regret my decision, but from grief. Because even though Rafael had stopped seeing me, even though Beatrice had never truly valued me, I had to mourn the family I'd imagined we'd be. The loving son who'd care for his aging mother,
the harmonious, multi-generational home, the golden years spent surrounded by people who cherished me. None of that existed. Maybe it never had. And letting go of that fantasy hurt more than I'd expected. Can you love someone and still need them gone?
The letters changed something, not their behavior. They were angrier than ever, especially Beatrice, who I heard tearing hers up in their room. But it changed me. Putting everything in writing, naming it clearly, it made it real in a way that thoughts never quite manage. I'd drawn a line, and I was standing on my side of it. Raphael tried one more time to negotiate. He caught me in the kitchen one morning, looking exhausted and desperate. "Mine, please. We can't afford rent and saving for a house at the same time. Just give us 6 more months. 6 months to figure things out." 6 more months. Then it would be another 6. Then a year. Then forever, until I died and they got what they wanted anyway. "No," I said gently. "I'm sorry, but no." "You're not sorry," he said bitterly. "If you were sorry, you wouldn't be doing this." How do you explain to your child that sometimes love requires boundaries? That protecting yourself doesn't mean you've stopped caring? I tried. I sat him down, spoke calmly, explained again about the documents, about feeling used, about needing to reclaim my life. He didn't hear me, or couldn't. He was so consumed by his own sense of injury that there was no room for mine. They spent the next 2 weeks looking for apartments, complaining loudly about prices, about how small everything was, about how unfair I was being. I stayed quiet, let them rage. Teresa told me I was being too kind, that I should have just had them legally evicted, but I couldn't do that. Maybe it was weakness, or maybe it was one last act of motherhood, giving them time to land on their feet, even as they cursed me for it. During those 2 weeks, I made my own plans. I contacted a realtor, quietly, without telling anyone. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it completely. This house was beautiful, but it was also a tomb. Manuel's tomb, our marriage's tomb. Every room held ghosts. Maybe it was time to let them rest. The realtor, a sharp woman named Katerina, came by when Raphael and Beatrice were at work. She walked through slowly, professional, pointing out features that would appeal to buyers. Great location, original details, good bones. With the right staging, this could sell quickly. There's strong demand in Tavera right now. How quickly? I asked. A month, maybe 2. Are you considering selling? I looked around at the living room, the sofa where Manuel used to read the newspaper, the floor where Raphael took his first steps. 40 years of life contained in walls and furniture and worn floorboards. Yes, I said, I think I am. That night, I dreamed about the ocean. I'd always loved it, but rarely went. There was always too much to do, too many people depending on me, too many reasons to stay put. In the dream, I was walking along a beach I didn't recognize, the water warm around my ankles, the horizon endless. I woke with the image still vivid, and something clicked into place. I didn't need a house this size. I didn't need to stay in Tavera surrounded by memories and disappointments. I could go anywhere, be anyone. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating at once. At 72, I still had time. Not infinite time, but enough. Enough to have a life that was mine, built on my terms, free from duty and guilt and the weight of others' expectations. I started looking at properties online, small places, coastal towns, apartments with balconies facing the sea, places where nobody knew me, where I could start fresh without the ghost of Helena the widow or Helena the doormat following me around. I bookmarked pages, made notes,
let myself imagine impossible things becoming possible. When Raphael and Beatrice finally found an apartment and gave me the move-out date, the 28th of the month, 2 days before my deadline, I felt relief flood through me so powerfully I had to sit down. They were leaving. They were actually leaving. It was happening. "Thank you," I said quietly. Raphael looked at me with something like hatred. "Don't thank me. This doesn't change anything. You're making the biggest mistake of your life." But I wasn't. For the first time in decades, I was making the rightest decision of my life. What does freedom cost when you've already paid for everything else?
Moving day arrived cold and gray, the sky heavy with November rain. I stayed in my room while they packed, listening to furniture being dragged, boxes being taped, Beatrice's sharp voice directing everything. I didn't offer to help. Didn't say goodbye. That might seem cruel, but I'd learned that some endings don't need elaborate ceremonies. Sometimes you just need to let people go. Around noon, I heard the front door open and close for the last time. Heard their car start. Heard it drive away. Then silence. Complete, absolute silence. I sat on my bed for a long moment, almost afraid to move, like I might break the spell. Then I stood up, walked downstairs, and looked at my house. It was strange seeing it emptied of their presence. The second bedroom bare except for the furniture I'd provided. No more Beatrice's expensive toiletries in the bathroom. No more Raphael's work files scattered on the dining table. Just space. Just possibility. I walked from room to room slowly, feeling lighter with each step. The house even smelled different without them. Cleaner. Mine. That evening, I called Katerina, the realtor. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's list it." She came the next day with the photographer. We staged rooms, removed personal items, made everything look neutral and appealing. It hurt a little, erasing the traces of my life there, but it also felt necessary, like preparing the house for its next chapter while I prepared for mine. The listing went live on a Wednesday. By Friday, we had 3 showings scheduled. By the following Tuesday, we had 2 offers. The process moved faster than I'd imagined, and suddenly it was real. I was leaving. Leaving Tavira. Leaving the house Manuel and I built together. Leaving the life I'd known. Teresa was skeptical when I told her, "Where will you go?" "Somewhere near the ocean," I said. "I haven't decided exactly where yet. Maybe Alvor, maybe Tavira. Somewhere small and quiet where I can hear the water." "You don't have to run away," she said gently. "I'm not running away," I said. "I'm running toward. There's a difference." And there was. Every day I felt more certain. I started getting rid of things, clothes I hadn't worn in years, kitchen equipment I'd held onto out of habit, books I'd never reread. I kept only what mattered, what carried true meaning, and let the rest go. It was liberating, this unburdening. Each item I donated or threw away felt like weight lifting off my shoulders. Raphael called once during this time. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mine?" He said, his voice tight. "Beatrice's mother told her you're selling the house. Is that true?" "Yes," I said simply.
Why would you do that? That's my inheritance. My inheritance. Not the place where he grew up, not the home his father built with love and labor, just an asset he was entitled to. It's not your inheritance yet, Raphael. It's my house, and I'm choosing to live differently. You're being selfish. Yes, I agreed. I am. For the first time in my life, I'm being selfish. And it feels wonderful. He hung up on me. I set the phone down gently and didn't cry. I'd done my crying. Now I was done. The house sold 3 weeks later to a young couple with a baby, excited to start their family there. I found a small cottage near Praia do Barril, an old fishing village outside Tavira. Simple and perfect. 2 bedrooms, a garden, a view of the dunes. The price was less than half what I got for the house, which left me with savings, security, independence. The day before the sale finalized, I walked through my house one last time alone, touched the walls, said goodbye to Manuel properly, told him I was sorry for staying stuck for so long, thanked him for the good years, and released him and myself from the weight of grief. I stood in Raphael's old bedroom, remembering the boy he'd been, forgiving him and me for who we'd both become. Then I locked the door behind me and handed over the keys. Is goodbye harder when you've loved the place or when you've loved who you were there?
The cottage by the beach was everything I needed and nothing I expected. Small, manageable, full of light. I moved in on a Tuesday morning in early December. The sky clear and bright, the air cold and fresh. I arranged my few belongings slowly. The photographs I'd kept, Manuel's reading chair that I'd shipped ahead, my grandmother's ceramic dishes. Everything else was new or borrowed. A fresh start built on the foundation of what I chose to remember. That first night, I couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety, but from excitement. I wrapped myself in a blanket and sat on the small patio outside, listening to the ocean in the distance. The sound of waves had become my lullaby. Constant, reliable, ancient. There was comfort in knowing the ocean had been here long before me and would remain long after. It put everything in perspective. I started building routines. Morning coffee, watching the sunrise, afternoon walks on the beach where I collected shells and said hello to the regulars, other retirees, dog walkers, fishermen checking their boats. I joined a small community center where they offered painting classes. I hadn't painted since I was young, but I remembered loving it once. It turned out I still did. Teresa visited for a weekend in January, bringing wine and gossip and laughter. We sat on my patio wearing coats against the winter chill, talking for hours. "You look different," she said, studying my face. "Younger somehow." "I feel lighter," I admitted, like I've been carrying a heavy bag for years and finally put it down. "Have you heard from Raphael?" "No," and I'm okay with that. Maybe someday we'll find a way back to each other. But if we don't, I'll survive. I'm surviving now. More than surviving, I'm living. And I was. I planted herbs in the garden. I learned to cook for one without feeling lonely. I read books I'd been meaning to read for decades. I volunteered at a local charity shop. I befriended my neighbors, a widow my age named Inez, who became a close friend, sharing meals and stories and comfortable silences. I discovered yoga classes designed for seniors and loved the gentle strength it built in my body.
On my 73rd birthday in March, I threw myself a party. Nothing big, just Teresa, Inez, a few women from my painting class. We ate cake on my patio, drank sparkling wine, laughed until our faces hurt. Inez gave a toast to Helena, who proved it's never too late to choose yourself. Everyone raised their glasses, and I felt tears on my face, but good ones this time, happy ones. Because she was right. I had chosen myself, finally, completely, without apology. And the world hadn't ended. I hadn't lost everything. I'd lost what was hurting me and kept what made me whole. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone with the remains of the celebration scattered around me, listening to the ocean, feeling the weight of peace settle over my shoulders like a beloved old shawl. My phone rang, Raphael's number. I looked at it for a long moment, watching it buzz against the table. That familiar name lit up in the dark. I thought about answering, thought about not answering, and then gently, I let it ring. Not from cruelty, not from revenge, but from self-preservation, from the understanding that some distances are necessary for survival, that some silences are kinder than forced conversations, that I had spent enough of my life being available for people who only valued me when I was useful. The ringing stopped. The night grew quiet again, and I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. How do you explain to the person you used to be that she deserved this peace all along?
They say that the hardest person to forgive is yourself. I thought about that a lot in the months that followed, forgiving myself not for what I'd done to Raphael and Beatrice, but for what I'd allowed them to do to me. For the years I'd spent invisible, for the silence I'd kept, for the boundaries I'd never drawn. But forgiveness, I learned, isn't about erasing the past. It's about accepting it without letting it define your future. Raphael never called again after that night. Sometimes I wondered about him, hoped he was well, hoped he'd learned something from what happened, but I didn't reach out. That door was closed, and I'd made peace with it. Maybe someday it would open again, but on different terms. As equals, with respect. Or maybe it wouldn't, and that was okay too. I lived in my cottage by the sea, simple days filled with small pleasures, morning light on the water, coffee with Inez, painting terrible watercolors that made me laugh, reading in Manuel's chair with the window open, salt air mixing with the smell of old paper. I wasn't waiting for anything anymore, wasn't hoping for some future redemption or reunion. I was just living, fully present in each moment, grateful for the quiet joy of autonomy. Sometimes, walking on the beach at sunset, I thought about who I'd been at 72. That woman standing in the hallway listening to her son plot against her, feeling her heart crack open. I wanted to go back and tell her it would be okay, that the fear she felt was valid but temporary, that on the other side of that terror was something better than she could imagine. But you can't go back. You can only go forward. And forward, I'd learned, was a beautiful direction. I turned 74 in my cottage, then 75. Each year lighter than the last. Each day more fully mine. I never became wealthy or famous or extraordinary in any conventional sense, but I became free. And that, I realized, was the only thing I'd ever really needed. Not a bigger house, not a dutiful family, not validation or recognition or security built on sacrifice, just the simple, radical freedom to be Helena. Not someone's mother, not someone's burden, not someone's solution, just Helena.
complete as I was, exactly where I chose to be. The ocean kept its rhythm outside my window. The sun rose and set. The seasons turned. And I, after a lifetime of serving everyone else's story, finally lived my own.
If this story touched your heart and you'd like to support this work, consider buying me a coffee on Ko-fi. Every small gesture helps bring more stories like this one to life. Thank you for listening, and remember, your kindness makes stories possible.